Hello, and welcome to Kobe's pre-service training. For this topic, we will talk about poverty and addiction. I will start by telling you a little bit about myself, and I hope we will have the opportunity to get to know each other a little better as you continue the foster care process. My name is Amanda Stores, and I'm the Resource Home Supervisor. Prior to working in Resource Home, I worked at another department at Kobe's called the Permanency Department, where we are contracted with Lancaster County Children and Youth as county workers. In this role, I had the opportunity to work with kiddos, birth parents, and resource parents. I was able to see the system from many different directions and perspectives. For a few years now, I have been working in the Resource Home Department, where I supervise the resource home specialists that you all work with. I love teaching this topic because it is something near and dear to my heart. I will be sharing with you today not only from my professional experience, but also my personal experience growing up in poverty and seeing the generational effects addiction had on my family. I will warn you, this topic may be heavy, so please feel free to take breaks if you need to. Okay, so let's jump right in by putting ourselves in the shoes of a birth parent. So here's the story. You have two children and you live in a trailer park with your mom and partner. Your brother, his girlfriend, and their baby also live there. Your mom has her room, your brother and his family have theirs, and you and your family have yours. It's tight, but your mom is on disability and she only gets $900 a month. That's pretty standard for those on disability. Your brother works at Domino's, his girlfriend stays home with the baby right now. You work in a lunchroom at the middle school down the street, and your partner just lost their job. Needless to say, none of you could afford to move out on your own. To you, this seems pretty normal. You always knew you'd end up staying with your mom because she needs you to take care of her as long as you could remember. When you were 6, her boyfriend beat her up, and you took care of her. When you were 10, she became an alcoholic. When you were 12, you became your brother's primary caretaker and became responsible for grocery shopping, making sure he got to school, had a bath, and had everything he needed. When you were 15, your family was homeless on and off. When you were 16, you had your first baby, and this is just kind of the way you knew life to be. This is the generational cycle of poverty. In the United States, a family of 4 would be considered in poverty if their annual income is $26,500 or less. After taxes, this means they bring home a maximum of $22,000. So my question for you is poverty about money? In the case I just presented, the family is certainly very poor. Poverty certainly can be about money. Often what we see in child welfare and in society is that poverty is a mentality. It may start out as money, but then it becomes a way that they think. So I want you to think about this with me for a minute. Poverty is a mentality. It's about the way someone thinks. We see in society individuals who are in many different types of poverty. Emotional poverty, cultural poverty, mental poverty, spiritual poverty, and physical poverty, meaning they're impoverished or greatly lacking in these aspects in their life. Often it is generational, meaning this is how I was raised, this is how my parents were raised, your grandparents were raised, and it's all you ever known and what you will always know. Maybe you don't even realize that other people live differently than you do. So let's take a step back, close your eyes, and think of a person in poverty. What is that mental picture like for you? Where do they live? What clothes do they wear? How do they smell? How do they talk? Maybe you're in Binns Park in downtown Lancaster, or downtown Philly even, and someone is standing on the side of the street holding a sign, "Homeless and hungry, God bless." Their hair is matted, their clothes are torn. If you get close enough, you can smell the body odor. Maybe they have a cart with them. Or Maybe you're in Walmart behind someone you may refer to as a welfare queen. She has acrylic nails, maybe hair dyed, and a Gucci sweatsuit. She has Coach sneakers on. You notice she's using her government benefits with her WIC and her SNAP card to buy some more expensive groceries. Kind of frustrates you. We see these two different spectrums in poverty. Those who live on the streets, and then those who really invest their money materialistically. If I feel good, if I look good, then I'm not worrying about my life, not worrying about that I didn't eat dinner tonight or what my life is like at home. I would encourage you now to open your eyes and to think about what you're seeing in these individuals is all above the surface. How he or she is dressed, how they smell, how they're spending their money, what they say or maybe what they didn't say. What we are not seeing is these individuals' thoughts, their feelings, their beliefs, and past experiences, what they're afraid of, what their values in life are. I like to use the example of buying or renting a house. There is a huge housing crisis. We're really seeing this in Lancaster, in this area of Pennsylvania. So, if we're looking at renting or buying a house, what is important to you when you're shopping for a house? For me, if I were buying a new house, some things that maybe I would put on my list are a garage. Land would be nice. The location, is it in a safe area? That would be important to me. More than one bathroom. I really don't like sharing a bathroom with a bunch of other people. The number of bedrooms. I really enjoy to have a guest room. That's important to me. A dishwasher. Super important. I don't want to do the dishes. Better yet, a pool would be great, right? A good neighborhood. Absolutely essential for me, right? For those in poverty, they're thinking of probably some different factors than what you or I would consider. One of the biggest factors is you have to prove that you make 3 times your rent in order to get an apartment. So if we're looking at an apartment for $1,000, that's maybe a 1 or 2 bedroom if you're lucky. You have to make over $20 an hour and prove that you've been making that for probably about 2 months or more to the landlord in order to get this house. So you can't just start a job and get a house. You have to show, or rent an apartment. You have to show that you're maintaining this money and that you've been able to keep the job, making over $20 an hour. Those on full-time disability typically only get about $900 a month to cover all of their expenses. This is housing, food, medical supplies, whatever they need, about $900. So this is another really big factor for people in poverty because a lot of them are on disability. 1 in 4 families that is eligible for a housing voucher actually receives them because there's a shortage. So these are Section 8 vouchers that families apply for. And then those in poverty often don't own cars, so their means of transportation, or if they do own a car, it's unreliable. But many of them use buses or walking as their means of transportation, maybe a bicycle. So being in close proximity to their job and a family is often a must, so they stay in that same area. Those in poverty often approach life in survival mode, living day to day. So many government benefits are issued at the first of the month. So this is when they'll go out to eat, get all of their groceries, all of their food, everything they need for the month. With this approach, it often causes them to spend until their money is gone. So they're not having the forethought or the planning that's needed to get them through the whole month. So then they'll be in crisis at the end of the month, needing formula and diapers and food that they didn't plan for. So there are many topics falling under poverty that we could talk about. However, we're going to talk about a few specifics that I've really seen affect our foster kiddos, birth parents, and therefore impacting our resource parents and sometimes affecting how they choose to parent. So, food is a basic necessity for everyone, right? But among our culture in the United States and really around the world, individuals often view food very differently based on their class. Some reasons why, or reasons that cause us to think about food differently, are due to store location, prices, availability, food storage, and our personal views regarding food and what it means to us. So I'm going to go through these questions on the slide here from where you do things and then also where people in poverty do. So the first question, where do you shop? Maybe you shop at Giant, Whole Foods, Aldi, Wise. Maybe you drive a little bit further to go to your preferred grocery store. I think most people probably have a store that they prefer to shop at for groceries or regular at. And what about people in poverty? Where do they shop? In Lancaster City, we have 3 grocery stores, Seatown, Bravo Supermarkets, and Save-A-Lot. Now, I grew up shopping at Save-A-Lot. It wasn't the Save-A-Lot in Lancaster, but my experience with Save-A-Lot, oftentimes we would stay away from the meat because it looked expired, like the raw meat, or it looked off in color. It just seemed a little bit weird, so we stayed away from that. There were bugs in the store that we shopped at, so we had to be careful not to bring those home in any boxes, although there were bugs at home anyway, but we wanted to be careful at the store. We didn't bring any more home. Everything is off-brand at the store. The produce was sometimes questionable, so sometimes we would stay away from it. Other times we'd be able to get some, but that would really depend on how much food we have budgeted. Produce can be expensive. Overall, the food was priced decently at Save-A-Lot, so my mom could buy a lot of cereal, chips, pasta, foods often carb heavy, that would keep us feeling full and satisfied. It would keep our belly full, not thinking about if it's healthy or not, but is it keeping us feeling full to get to the next meal? The next question here, where do you store your food? So in the middle class, food storage typically isn't a problem or really isn't even thought of. We have maybe a side-by-side fridge and freezer, and then an extra one in the garage sometimes, or a chest freezer in the basement so we can buy in bulk. People in poverty, this is a real issue for them. Obviously, it depends on their level of poverty and where they're at the time. But they likely buy a lot more shelf-stable foods as it's cheaper and it's easier to store. Smaller quantities as well. Really, an apartment-sized fridge or freezer only fits so much, and a hotel fridge is basically useless if you're talking about storing food for more than one person. Many also just shop for each meal they need. This is an expensive way to eat, shopping meal to meal, but it keeps them from having to store the food or carry the food or whatever. So yeah, it kind of solves some of those issues there. Third question, what does food mean to you? I think this is one we could stop and think about for a while. Maybe you want to pause the video. What does food mean to you? Does it mean family or connection? A time where you all get to be together? Maybe it's a means to show love. Grandma making her favorite or her special lasagna and her homemade bread. That was the way she showed her family that she loved us, right? Or nourishment. Maybe you're very aware that each food you put in your body needs to have a specific purpose and a specific supports you in nourishing you. Then on the other side, what may food mean to someone in poverty? This is speculation, right? It may mean family and connection. absolutely could. But it also could be that they live in a state of hunger, or that it is a major source of stress for them as to how they are going to feed themselves or their family. It could also be a source of resentment. My kids eat all of the food and there's not enough for me. So I resent them for that. I need to eat too. Or mom and dad always feed my older sister and I just get whatever's left, if there's anything left. The fourth question is, how do you transport your food? So this is something that many people in the middle class don't even think about. We get in the car or your SUV or your truck or whatever, and you drive to the grocery store without a second thought, and then you drive your food home, right? For someone in poverty, this is a real issue. They may walk, so they have to get as much as they can carry, or they may use the bus, also they still have to carry it. They may ride their bike. This makes it hard to transport any large amounts of food. So again, along with the food storage issue, many reasons why they buy smaller amounts of food. So I'd encourage you, when you see a birth parent walking into a parent-child visit with McDonald's and a huge high seafood punch for their 4-year-old, it's going to be hyped up on sugar, going home with you later, to think about this from their perspective. This birth parent is meeting their child's most basic need, and they may not always have been able to do this. Moving on to normal, I hope that you all understand by now that your normal is likely different than the normal of a foster child or children that will be coming into your home. I'm specifically going to talk about sleeping arrangements, but this applies to so much more than sleep. Maybe you prepare and you set up a really nice room, anticipating a foster child coming into your home or foster children. You get all the right books, a brand new bed set, maybe a sound machine, and a nightlight. But the kiddo that comes into your home may be used to the picture here. Sharing a bed with their parent or parents and sibling, sleeping on the floor in the kitchen, sleeping in the closet, or moving from shelter to shelter. These are all common things that we hear. So when that foster child comes to your home and has nightmares in that beautiful room that you set up with peace and quiet, consider the why behind that. Maybe this is their first night in their own room ever. They're used to hearing the music from the hotel rooms around them, people yelling maybe, sleeping with their little brother and their mom so that they can make sure that they're safe. It feels much safer to know these people are right next to me. I would encourage you to think about this. If I were a child coming into this home for the first time as a foster child, what may feel weird or different to me? If you think about it long enough, probably most everything may feel weird or scary. These people have 2 bathrooms? Why do they need 2? Why is that lady cleaning so much? She can just sit down. This house is so clean. I've never seen a house so clean in my life. Why isn't the TV on all the time? It's so quiet in here and I don't know what I'm supposed to do. This family all sits together and eats at the table for dinner in those hard chairs. Why wouldn't they just go to their bedrooms or sit on the comfortable couch over there? Everyone's normal is different. I'd encourage you to take a look in your manual at the Hidden Rules Among Classes handout. I think that this will really help highlight some of what might be normal in your home that may be very different to a foster child coming into your home. So we're going to talk about the 3 stages of use. If you study this more, you'll get into a lot more complexities of this topic in addiction if you take a college course or do more research, but we're going to keep it super simple today. So stage 1, this is experimental or social. This is the first stage. So on your 21st birthday, you go out drinking just for fun. It's a thing to do, right? Maybe the next time someone says, we're going out for drinks after work, you should join. That's social. It feels like the thing to do. Experimental. That's the first stage. Stage 2 is abuse. This is when you are using despite consequences. You went out with friends socially, and now you are doing it every week to hang out. And the next morning, you wake up with a headache, you feel awful, you feel hungover, but it doesn't matter because the next Friday and Saturday, you're going to do it all over again. It doesn't matter that it has a consequence, you're going to keep doing it. Your lifestyle starts to change as a result of the abuse. You'll start what you used to do on Friday, you're going to have to reschedule. You're no longer going to do that so that you can continue to use and go out drinking with friends. Stage 3 is full-on addiction when you are dependent, meaning you start having physical changes when you're not using that substance. I get a headache when I don't have caffeine. I'm starting to have that physical change. What you think about, what you plan your time around, and what you do changes so that you can get to that place, or you schedule things throughout your day so that you can use. When you get to the addiction level, it's not about getting high, it's about feeling normal. When you are using it to feel normal, not what it does for you. You're not getting that high anymore. You're not using it for that. You're using it to feel normal. When you are addicted, you are using it so that you feel normal again. You are not functioning on a normal level without that substance. On average, a person recovering from addiction will relapse 9 times. About 40% of kids in Lancaster County in foster care are there because of a parent's addiction, and this often gets passed down generationally. Substances change your brain. So here's a quote from a birth mom I worked with. She has 6 kiddos in the system now. She said this to me when she was pregnant with her 5th. The only way I'm going to stop using is if I'm dead. Can you imagine the level of defeat and helplessness she felt here? Her brain had changed. Addiction consequences do not matter any longer. When you're not using, you are sick. So you have to use so that you are well. There is a neurological change in addiction. Your brain is designed to have a natural high. The chemicals in your brain when you laugh, when you go on a roller coaster, when you go in a car, when you do something that increases your level of joy, the chemicals change. There's dopamine that's released into the brain. You get the natural high. That's why babies get excited when you play peekaboo, because you are giving them that natural high, that release of dopamine. It also is a painkiller. It feels good. So when you go up on a roller coaster, the chemical in your brain goes way up. So let's say you start here, right? The chemicals in your brain go way up on that roller coaster when you ride a jet ski, when you're going in a fast car, so that the dopamine is released and the chemicals go up. It feels good, right? We're going up, we're coming back to normal. And then we say, let's do it again. Let's go on that roller coaster again. So it goes up and it comes down. But when you use an illicit substance, a chemical substance, your brain, let's say cocaine, takes you way up to the ceiling. So you're going from here, your normal, way up to the ceiling, past where it's supposed to normally go. And then you come down and you crash way at the floor. Maybe you'll come back to normal for a while after using that drug. But after using the drug for a really long time, your brain is not meant, it's meant to be here and go up and come down, right? And then sometimes you have a bad day and it'll come down. but it generally will stay within this range. After you use those chemicals for a really long time, your brain's not meant to go up to the ceiling and crash to the floor. So it's not able to come back and regulate to normal. So in addiction, you sit at that low feeling and you can't move up without the drugs, right? You've been doing it so long, your body thinks it no longer needs to produce that dopamine or that chemical that gets you to normal. So you use just to get back to normal. Sometimes you want to get a little bit high again, and sometimes that's when they overdo it and they overdose, unfortunately. So in a parent-child visit, parents often test positive. They will continue to allow the visit unless the parent is impaired to the point that it seems unsafe. Birth parents often use so that they can attend these birth parent visits, so that they're normal. They're not getting those symptoms of withdrawal. If they didn't use, they would be having the symptoms of withdrawal. They would not be well, and then they couldn't see their kids. So they use to see their kids, and their visit will occur. So is addiction a disease or a choice? Is it a choice at first, and then it stops being a choice? Is addiction genetic or something that we are born with? What about the little boy whose mom needed him to sleep so she could go to work, so she gave him drugs? What about the teenager whose dad was their dealer and they felt like they had to take it, right? What about the baby who was born addicted to drugs? Sometimes it starts as a choice and then it no longer becomes a choice, but sometimes it doesn't feel like it's a choice at all. Addiction is a state of dis-ease. When you are in addiction, you are no longer choosing to get high. You are trying to feel normal again, just to make your brain function. As we conclude talking about poverty and addiction, I'm hoping that you all have some of these takeaways, some things that you learned from this lesson. Number one, life is messy. These birth parents, the children's lives, they're complicated. The next one, give grace. When that birth parent is late for 4 visits in a row and they test positive every time, give grace. Be curious. Why is this 10-year-old hoarding food behind his bed? We have plenty of it. It's in the fridge. He has access to it all the time. Why is this 16-year-old refusing to go to school? It doesn't make any sense. Why did this 18-month-old come into my home and they're still only taking a bottle? They've never had solid foods. Be curious as to the reasons why, but then graceful if you find out what that reason is and maybe you don't like it. Focus on what you can control. This one's hard. Focus on what you can control. You can't make birth parents go to rehab. You can't change the judge's decisions. You had no say in mom not showing up for her visit today, but you can connect with, you can comfort and advocate for that child placed in your home. So why doesn't she just choose her child and stop using? I hope you know the answer to this at this point. It's just not that simple. Poverty and addiction are complex issues. I'd encourage you to step back and think about ways that your life is different than someone who lives with poverty and addiction, and how that may affect a child coming into your home. Maybe you have experience with poverty or addiction personally. Please set aside some time to think about your triggers, maybe see a therapist. Think about your triggers and work on some coping mechanisms or skills, because when, not if, you're triggered by a foster child or even a referral, it's important that you know how to deal with that. Thank you all, and I look forward to meeting you all in pre-service training.